The housing crisis isn't a failure, it's design. 100 years of policy, finance, and planning built not to solve the problem, but to shape who gets to live where and who gets left behind. And now, rents are up, ownership is out of reach, families are bleeding cash just to keep a roof overhead, and still getting pushed out. This isn't accidental, it's structural. And I'm Justin, and in this series, I'm showing you exactly how the game was built and what we can do to win it back. So, section 1, what even is affordable housing? They'll tell you affordable housing means spending no more than 30% of your income on where you live. That's the textbook answer. Now, the HUD-approved soundbite. But if you've sat across from a family that just got priced out of their neighborhood, you know it's not about percentages, it's about power. Housing isn't just a roof over your head, it's stability, access, control. Think about it. If you're earning $50,000 a year, 30% of your income, that gives you $1,250 a month to spend on housing. In theory, that gets you a decent place. In reality, that barely gets you a mailbox in half the country. And if you're paying $1,800 because that's the only option near you, that extra $550 isn't just rent. It's your emergency fund, your groceries, your kid's school trip, your peace of mind. When housing costs crush families, it's not just financial, it's psychological. You start thinking smaller, you take fewer risks, you don't dream, you survive. And that's what's at stake here. This isn't about charity, it's about what happened to a society when the foundation everyone's standing on starts to crack. So yes, technically affordable housing equals 30% of your income, but if that's all you understand, you're already behind. So section 2, how we got here, a rigged game. People act like this housing crisis is some unfortunate accident, like the system just stopped working. But the truth, it was designed this way. So let's rewind. In the early 1900s, housing in America was survival of the fittest, left entirely to the private market. If you could afford it, you lived. If you couldn't, you didn't. Then the Great Depression hit. The market collapsed, families lost everything. And suddenly the government realized leaving shelter up to Wall Street wasn't going to cut it. Enter the New Deal. Public housing, mortgage insurance, the birth of the FHA. It sounded like progress, but that progress had a gate and it didn't open for everyone. Redlining wasn't a side effect, it was the strategy. Black families, immigrant families, low-income renters labeled as high risk by design. They were locked out of mortgages, locked out of neighborhoods, locked out of wealth. And it didn't stop there. We used zoning laws to keep density out. We used highways to divide communities. We built public housing, then stripped the funding until it crumbled. See, the problem isn't just that we didn't build enough housing. The problem is that we built policy on exclusion. We scaled inequality, we engineered segregation, and then we called it planning. Today's crisis, it's the echo of yesterday's decisions. And if you don't understand the blueprint, you'll never fix the foundation. So now we're here, 2025. The headlines saying rates are cooling and markets are adjusting, but for most people, the ground is still shifting beneath their feet. Let's look at the math. Over the last decade, median home prices in major metros jumped over 50%. Incomes, maybe 20, if you're lucky. And that's not a cap, that's a canyon. And most people are trying to leap across it without a parachute. Renters feel it first, then teachers, then nurses, then entrepreneurs. They're like the canaries in the coal mine, and they've been choking for years. And here's the part that the mainstream misses. This isn't just a housing problem, it's a systems problem. You've got zoning laws written 70 years ago for neighborhoods that no longer exist. You've got cities locked in legal battles to build duplexes on land where McMansions are still protected like endangered species. And you've got developers who want to build, who need to build, but the cost of labor, materials, insurance, and permitting makes it nearly impossible to bring anything to market under $400,000 per door. On the other side, wages haven't just stagnated, they flatlined in real terms. Healthcare is up, childcare is up, transportation is up, and the basic question becomes, where do working people go when there's nowhere left to go? That's why families double up, that's why basements turn into bedrooms, that's why a one bedroom in a city feels like a luxury item instead of a right. And it's why homelessness isn't some far off issue for other people. It's a paycheck away. It's a layoff away. It's real and it's growing. The market's under pressure from all sides, too little supply, too much demand, and no cohesive strategy to bring this all together. But here's the part that stings the most. The people closest to the problem, they're usually the farthest from the power to solve it. And until that flips, we're not just dealing with a housing crisis, we're dealing with a credibility crisis. Because if a society this rich can't figure out how to house its people, what are we even building? Section 4, who pays the price? So let me ask you a question. Who pays the price for unaffordable housing? It's not the policymakers, not the investors with 4 homes, not the consultants writing white papers for condos they don't live in. It's the families, the ones spending 40, 50, sometimes 60% of their paycheck just to keep the lights on. So let's start with the kids. You want to know what happens when housing isn't stable? Kids change schools 3 times in a year. They sleep on couches. They fall behind not because they're lazy, but because they're lost. Because they can't concentrate on math when they don't know where they're sleeping next week. Now zoom out. You're a teacher in that same school district, but you can't afford to live in the neighborhood you serve. So you drive 45 minutes each way. You burn out, you leave, and the cycle spins again. And let's talk health. Cost-burdened families don't get annual checkups. They don't fill prescriptions. They skip meals so their kids can eat. And that silent toll, it shows up later in ER visits and chronic conditions and generational trauma we don't measure because we can't see it on the balance sheet. And then there's the workforce. Employers say we can't keep talent, but talent can't live within 20 minutes of the job. So they leave, or they stay and spend 3 hours a day commuting, exhausted, disengaged, ready to quit. Small businesses suffer, hospitals strain, infrastructure cracks, not because people don't want to work, but because we've priced them out of the economy they're powering.